All right, it's been a while since I've done a video, and I've tried to only pay attention to some of the stuff that matters, because right now there is a lot of just political garbage. I mean, it's all relevant, but when it's all relevant, it's really hard to sift through what matters. So this story is what I think is one of the most essential stories, and it's going to be one that kind of drives where our society goes. And it's concerning the Venezuelan migrants who were recently kidnapped by immigration in the United States and then trafficked to an El Salvadorian prison called CCOT. This is not an immigration process. This is not deportation. This is the kidnapping and trafficking of human beings. And the reason I can say this so confidently is because whether or not you are in the country legally or not, whether or not you are a citizen of the United States, you still have the constitutional protections while you are in U.S. territory. Which means these Venezuelan migrants had their Fifth Amendment right to due process violated. Like, not even just violated, straight up just ignored. There was no process. These people, there is no evidence put forth by the administration that these people are guilty of anything at all. And even if they were guilty, prove it. If you got the evidence for it, then why are you afraid of going to court? And it's because this administration doesn't care about the checks and balances, because proving itself with violating the Fifth Amendment rights of people is it doesn't care about checks and balances either. This administration is anti-constitutional. Anti. It does not work within the bounds of it. It will continuously try to poke and gnaw at it. And this matters for all of us, because when this administration decides to violate the Fifth Amendment protections of migrants in the United States, he is violating the Fifth Amendment protections of all of us, including you. If you are a fan of the president, you also are having your constitutional rights being violated in this moment, because he is setting the standard for, in order for him to accuse somebody of a crime, he doesn't have to prove it. He can just remove people from the equation without consequence. And thanks to his Supreme Court ruling that granted him criminal immunity for all things taken while he's president in the services of his duty, whatever he gets to define as his duty, it's not going to take very long before American citizens start disappearing through a process very similar to this, if not through this very same prison. It is entirely possible. And I say this because this administration, Trump, has multiple times already commented on doing just that, promising to, or threatening to send American citizens to CCOT in El Salvador for protesting Elon Musk and Tesla, for damaging property in some cases, to declare that as domestic terrorism. This president needs to design a system where it is basically a police state, where he alone, or his administration, gets to define the rules of the game, because they know they're cheating, and they know they're running out of time before the people start to gain too much momentum for them to get the handle on it. So they are trying to set up a system that it allows for the trafficking and disappearing of inconvenient people within our society. It's not going to just stop at migrants. It's also going to start pulling in American citizens for speaking out. And the longer we allow this administration to operate like this, the more and more that it is going to be able to get away with it. Which is why, like, if you have the capacity to speak out on this, to protest, to call your representatives, your senators, to make your presence and your voice known, you have to do it. This is not something that is like, I'll get around to it some other time. You may not have the time. And I don't say this as a way to just induce fear. It should give you a sense of urgency, but there's a plan to this. The plan is that the people gain momentum in the face of this, to push back in order to remind this administration and our government that the Constitution is a promise between the people and the government. The people are protected from the government by the Constitution. And the government is protected from the people by the Constitution. If this administration continues breaking down that promise and violating that oath like it took to everything else, to all treaties and agreements that it has with our allies, if this administration continues to eat away at that Constitution, it is putting itself at risk. That's why I keep reiterating that this type of authoritarian swing, it always leads to its own undoing. It may very well destroy the Constitution and get away with a lot of horrendous behavior going forward into the future. It very well could get away with it. But then it's not going to have the means and mechanisms to protect itself when it winds up running into something that it can't control. And the people right now already have built up quite a bit of momentum. And we're in the early stages of this. We haven't seen just how horrendous this is going to get. You know, it's a lot of people haven't even been impacted by it directly yet. These are people that are just paying attention that are out this pissed off. These are people that are willing to go out into the cold weather, call off work in order to go protest for this type of stuff because it directly impacts them or because they're paying attention. But you wait. Come summertime when it's nice outside and the economy is not doing so nice and we're in a full-on recession, no small part because these tariffs are just something that this administration just will not back away from. Now you have that economic recession where people are losing their work and they can directly point to the dude in the White House. Yeah, it's going to bubble over in a way that I don't think martial law alone is going to be able to handle it. Because let's remember that the United States could not take Afghanistan after 20 years. It took, a week, 2 weeks for the Taliban to take it back? This was the world's most powerful military trying to occupy the world's poorest region on the planet. And after 20 years of all of that military might behind it, it could not do it. It was undone in weeks. The idea that the United States is going to be able to declare martial law upon itself and to control the inevitable deconstruction is ludicrous. Absolutely insane. You won't have the manpower to do it. Even if the military itself was completely unified in doing so, it still would not be enough. So, I want, what people are doing now, it's good. I think that this is, the right direction. Not what this administration is doing, obviously, but the people's responses is recognizing it's not Congress that's going to save us. It's not our senator, it's not our representative. They're not going to save us from this. It's not going to be the judges. It's not the judicial system. It's not going to be John Roberts of the Supreme Court come riding down from the heavens on a white horse to just protect us. No, that's not going to happen. What is going to happen is the outrage is going to build and build and build until it is the only sound in the room. So, despite where we are going for our society, I don't believe that it's going to be unproductive. From this destruction that we're witnessing, there is so much momentum and passion and outrage and empathy behind a lot of this outrage that people are going to be able to very quickly build better out of this. So if you're feeling justifiably unnerved by what we're watching, is just remember is that you are not alone, and there are millions and millions of Americans that have been paying attention to this, and more of us are starting to wake up. So I look forward to the world that we're going to be able to build once this is all over with.